Okay, today we're starting our fourth unit, and the first thing we're going to be looking at and focusing on is the Renaissance. So let's kind of take a brief look at what the Renaissance was. First thing we notice is that the word Renaissance is French for rebirth. And to know why it's called a rebirth is to understand that what we are going to see in Europe is a revival of classical learning that had existed in ancient Greece and Rome that had disappeared for a while and is now resurfacing in Europe. And something to know about the Renaissance is that it's not one event, and it's not focused on one person or a group of people, but numerous things. And it's actually an event that includes many other accomplishments and achievements. And inside the Renaissance, we see a lot of other things that lead to rebirths and advances. Two we're going to be looking at this unit are the Reformation, which was a religious rebirth and advancement, and scientific revolution, which is going to advance science greatly. So what drove the Renaissance? The intellectual movement really behind the Renaissance was known as humanism. And if you can guess from the name, humanism wanted people to shift their focus on human achievements. And really what they were shifting their focus from was religious achievements and religious things. At this time, the Catholic Church is the most powerful and influential institution in Europe. And humanism's kind of going to go away and focus against that. And we'll talk about more in that in the next lecture. So what kind of subjects did humanism focus on? Well, the things they supported were things like logic, skepticism, rationalism, essentially using the human brain to figure out problems, do things, make things. What did they reject? Tradition, blind faith, blind devotion, authoritarianism. And really those things are all associated, for the most part, with the church at this time and the way it controls people's lives. Italy is going to be the birthplace of the Renaissance, and we're going to talk more in a second about why. But the thing to know about Italy at this time is it's not a unified country. It's actually a land made up of separate kingdoms and city-states. One of them is the Republic of Florence, home to the Medici family. The other are the Papal States, where you can find the home to the Catholic Church. And like I said, the Renaissance takes place over a couple centuries. And a major reason for that is Italy's location. It's the center of European and Middle Eastern trade. And really, it's the Middle Eastern aspect of it that's important. It's because of people from the Middle East that the ideas of the Greeks and Romans come back into Europe. For almost 1,000 years, these ideas had almost been lost, and they'd kind of been kept in books, kept in writings by people in the Middle East, and it's through trade that these ideas resurface in Europe. So, other reasons for Italy being the center of the Renaissance, or the birthplace of the Renaissance. One, it's the center of the Roman Empire. So it was, home to where all these classical ideas had once existed. Two, it was the center of the wealthy Catholic Church. And even though I said humanism really went against the power of the Catholic Church still was wealthy and a big supporter of the arts, or patron of the arts. Who else? The Medici family of Florence. The Medici family, famous for banking, were also rich and powerful, like the Catholic Church, and also, once again, patrons of the arts, supporters of the arts. Finally, the third group we see are merchants and traders. If we know anything now, we know trade is a big part of Europe at this time, and Italy is kind of the center of it. Merchants and traders have gotten rich because of it and support the arts. So without trying to sound like a broken record, the three wealthy groups who really support the arts in Italy and help this rebirth are the Roman Catholic Church, the Medici bankers, and merchants and traders. So what's a Renaissance man? Some of you have probably heard this term before. What does it mean? Well, it's simply referring to a cultured man of the Renaissance who was knowledgeable, educated, or proficient in a wide range of fields. Well, what kind of fields are we talking about? Pretty much anything and everything. We see the more artistic side with writing and painting, sculptors, poets, musicians, but we also see the more analytical side, architecture, scientists, mathematicians, inventors. And these things really go hand in hand, in all honesty. People who are artists are also architects. And really, a Renaissance man is somebody who's not good at one of these things, or even really two, but multiple areas they excel in. Our most famous example of a Renaissance man is most likely Leonardo da Vinci. Pictured here are probably his two most famous paintings, or two of his most, The Last Supper and the Mona Lisa. But da Vinci was so much more than that. He was an inventor, an architect, and contributed to the Renaissance in multiple fields. Another guy we think of is Michelangelo, famous for his David and his painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. But once again, so much more to Michelangelo than just that. Brunelleschi. Brunelleschi is interesting because it not only does art play a role with him, but also the advances in architecture. He discovers this concept of perspective, which is displaying the illusion of depth in a 2D picture. So essentially making a 2D surface 3D. And so Brunelleschi is not only contributing to art in that sense, in which perspective is going to take off in art, but also architecture as well. If you can just picture the Duomo of Florence, pictured there, 500 years old and still looks pretty good. Renaissance literature. Probably the most famous person we can think of is William Shakespeare. Pretty sure we all know. Shakespeare, famous for his plays, focusing on, tragedy. He's also a poet, and really, to think about it, his plays are still around today, still performed today, still read today. So this influence is huge, existing for over 500 years now. Inventions in the Renaissance also played a huge role, and probably none bigger than the printing press. The printing press, shown here, is invented by a guy by the name of Johann Gutenberg in 1439. And it's important because it allows for the mass production of books, literature, anything you can think of. It allows people to produce these things much quicker than once possible. And so really what we're going to see is that an invention like the printing press allowed for artists and thinkers and writers to get their ideas to the masses. And as we're going to see in the next lecture with the Reformation, is this couldn't be more true. Finally, what we're going to see is the Renaissance would eventually spread through the rest of Europe. We're going to look more at this in the next lecture, but it's not going to be confined to Italy. And the real reason for this is kind of how it came to be in the first place, is trade. Trade and the spread of ideas and people talking with each other is really what drives the Renaissance, its ideas, and its success in really reviving what was almost a dead Europe.